Awake living into uncharted territory together, accelerating your wellness path, plus your interconnectivity at the same time.
It's not your grandma's Ayurveda, but it kind of is.
It's the Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Cate Stillman.
Hello, it's Cate, and I'm going to do an Ask Cate show. Many of you have gone to yogahealer.com/ask and left me a message and let me know what you want to know. So what we're going to do in this show today is we're going to simply play your questions and I'm going to answer them. And that's it. That's all it's going to be. And we've got all sorts of topics. Let me scroll down here. We've got questions about India, questions about amenorrhea, questions about the kidneys in Ayurveda, making miso, reading our tongues, allergy relief, green smoothies, enemas during pregnancy. We've got, emotional almas since birth. We've got all sorts of things. So I'm going to spin a yarn and I hope you got something out of it. And I think I need to do a little disclaimer here that I am not giving medical advice or something like that. I'm just helping people understand my point of view. So that's my disclaimer. Do with it what you will. I think we're all adults here. So take care of yourself. That's the whole point. And hopefully you'll get some sort of insight into my perspective or the Ayurvedic perspective or multiple perspectives that keep you asking better questions. And if you want to be on the next Ask Cate show, go to yogahealer.com/ask. And if we like these shows, if they get good download numbers, then I'll keep making them because this is super fun for me. All right, on with the show. I am so glad I dove into Ayurveda in my early 20s. Now I'm 43. I'll be 44 in a few weeks. I raised my kid with Ayurvedic wisdom. I've navigated the changes in a woman's life from single to partner to with child. I've navigated the growth of my steady career explosion with the tools and the skills. The fundamental philosophy of Ayurveda keeps giving back. I look forward to being 50 someday, 60 someday, 70 someday, 70, 80, 90, 100, and beyond. The basic habits of longevity, the habits of yogis, and the wisdom system to get better, smarter, wiser, and in deeper body integrity as you cycle around the sun each year is something I got to jump on early in life. It's never too late to step into Thrive. Learn Ayurveda. It'll keep giving back to you throughout your lifetime. Go to yogahealer.com/Ayurveda, AYURVEDA, for my newest free video training. You will love it. That's yogahealer.com/Ayurveda.
Hi, Cate. This is Audrey talking to you from Asheville, North Carolina. I'm curious if you've ever been to India, either to travel or to study yoga or Ayurveda, and what your thoughts are on studying yoga in India versus the US in today's day and age. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Audrey. Yes, I have been to India. In 2004, I went to the Krishnamacharya Mandiram in Chennai, which is where that's where his part of the lineage comes from. So Desikachar is Krishnamacharya's son. And for those of you who don't know Krishnamacharya, he was the dude that introduced Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois and, of course, his son Desikachar to yoga and as well as a number of other great teachers. And so I went there to study chanting for 2 weeks. And then I and it was a really intensive program. It was like yoga of chanting it was 8 hours a day. We were chanting the traditional Vedic chants in the traditional Vedic way. And it totally rewired my mouth, my throat, my pranic body, my pranamaya kosha. That was a pretty incredible experience of yoga. It was unlike anything I'd ever done. It was incredibly precise. It was amazing how bad we were and how good we got in 2 weeks. Not that we got good, my little group, but we got a heck of a lot better. And it really opened my annamaya kosha, my physical body through simply chanting, through simply moving the prana, through using sound vibration, through using these ancient chants. And it really woke me up to there's so much more going on here. It's a super cool institute, the KYM Institute in Chennai. I highly recommend it. From there, I went on to Kerala to experience Panchakarma Kerala, India style. And I was there for a couple of weeks with a good friend who was also a yoga teacher. And was it like the most unbelievable panchakarma experience of my life? Like, honestly, no, it wasn't. A lot of people, you'll hear a lot of stories of people doing panchakarma, both in India, all over the world. And you're going to hear a whole variety of different stories. I can't say it was even that good for my body, quite honestly. Like, I didn't feel like the people really understood what I needed. And I think that happens a lot when we have cross-cultural healing. Like, there's not often a really good transference. Was it a good experience? Like, yes, it was good. Because then when people ask me, like, is it the end all be all to experience panchakarma from a highly recommended little teeny tiny clinic in India or whatnot, I'm like, grain of salt. From there, I went up to Pune and I studied with Dr. Vasant Lad. He has a Gurukula, or had a Gurukula program. I'm not sure if he still does. He probably still does, or the Institute, the Ayurveda Institute probably still does. And actually, I know they still do, because I was hanging out with Jennifer Ayers, and she was on the podcast last year. She dropped by my house in Idaho, and she is actually an assistant in that program. And I believe she's like one of the deans of faculty at the Ayurvedic Institute. And we met on that program back in 2004, so 13 years ago. It was, I think there's 12 of us there, and we spent all our time with Dr. Ladd, and we watched him, or, assisted would be a stretch of the imagination, see clients or patients day in and day out in Pune. So twice a week we were there, and it was like back to back. There's a waiting room out the door. Both people from Iyengar Yoga Institute, international traveling yoga teachers. There's a lot of them that came through. A lot of his local population that were, more of like the merchant class. And then twice a week we'd go out to his farmhouse location, and he'd see peasants, and we'd watch him just like treat the people, be the village doctor. And he would teach us in between. He would take these little breaks, and we would learn, and he would do those beautiful drawings that he does, and help us understand this ancient wisdom tradition called Ayurveda. The nice thing about that program is like everyone there was already a practitioner. And so we'd already known a lot, and this was very much more of like a practicum. I also in there did a 10-day silent meditation retreat in the Goenka tradition. That was my third Goenka, I'm not even sure what they call it, Vipassana meditation, silent meditation retreat. And it was awesome. It was so rough and ready at India style, where you're just like, there's no like fancy cushions, there's no comfortable beds. Like, it was hardcore. It's just like concrete dormitory with like a little spigot sort of thing. And it just brought me down to the essence of just the we don't need much to sit in silence. And that was I was really glad that I needed a break, because I was having so many experiences, and I think I was processing a lot, that at one point I just backed out of the curricular program. Like, I just need to go sit on my butt for 10 days in silence and practice, the core practices of just Vipassana, just sitting in silence. So that was great. And then I was pretty ready. To get out of Pune and skedaddle back to the US after being over there. I believe I was there for 3 or 4 months. And that was it. So did I study yoga there? At KYM I did. It was a yoga of chanting. I studied, if you will, Panchakarma and Ayurveda and meditation more. Would I recommend studying in India? I think this whole life is about choose your own adventure. Like, if you want to go study yoga in India, like, the only person that's going to be able to answer that question for you is you, because there is no right or wrong here. And there are advantages to studying yoga in a culture that you're already, acculturated into, if you will. Like, there's some real benefits to going deeper into yoga therapeutics in the United States of America, or in Canada, or in any westernized country. There's the comfort of props. There's the comfort of being in a language, in a culture, in a tradition that is, you're more or less already assimilated in, as opposed to doing like all that cultural stuff in a totally different place and then learning. There's also, like, the Westerners have made a lot of progress in a lot of areas. So we have a different take on things that can make it much easier to learn. And it's a different realm. It's a different realm of teaching. It's a totally different type of practice. So obviously yoga in the United States is a much more athletic experience than it is in India, where it's much more of a spiritual transcendence experience. So I think it also depends what you're looking for. Like, if you're looking for like really good alignment and more of an athletic practice, like stick to the West. But if you're looking for the the depth of the core of the tradition and the esotericness of it, like get your butt over to India. So that's my 2 cents on that. Thanks for asking, Audrey. It's fun to think back to that special time for me. My biggest takeaway coming back to the US, it was really cool. It's like, I know what I'm doing. I know the people I want to work with. And I was very clear at that point in 2014 that my dharma, my role in this whole pursuit of learning Ayurveda and just being in the field of it was to make it super easy for Westerners, for people like me, to get the goods of Ayurveda and to get them quick, right? To get them in the way that there was the least cultural baggage. There was like the least cultural conflict, that it was the easiest to experience the depth of the wisdom without getting hung up on all of the, I don't necessarily want to say religious baggage, but I think I did just say it, because there is a lot of that. There's a lot more of there's this way to do it because we've done it for 10 generations this way, without asking why are we doing it that way? And Westerners are so good at asking the big why question, that big 3-letter word question of like, why? And should we continue to do this in the future? So if you want anything that's more innovative in nature, like you really want to look to the West. I know there's a lot of more integration happening now between East and West, and there's a lot of these innovative pockets happening in India and around Nepal and the Himalayas, but just make sure that what you're going towards is really what you want, is resonant, or fly by the seat of your pants and just go on an adventure. The other thing I want to say on this, I know I'm talking to Yarn, is I think at that point I had already been to about 20 countries in my life, and I'm a huge fan of getting out of your own box. Right? Like getting out of your own culture and just seeing how what other beliefs are, what other ancestral traditions are, what other food cultures are, because it starts to make us really deeply question the way we were raised. And for me, it also, I've always had this sense of entitlement, of being entitled, and it really cemented that for me. Of like, yeah, you've had it all, and now it's time to like do something with that that's good for others. So that's my 2 cents.
This is from Florida. My question for you today is about amenorrhea. When I was in high school, I ran track and cross country, and I lost my period for the whole 4 years that I was running, except for about the 2 weeks in between seasons when I would come back very lightly. I was never the type of person who was underweight or had a super low BMI like most runners. I was always pretty curvy, but I was very fast too, so I worked my butt off. But then I also had, after running practice, I would go and we had a barn with 12 horses that I would take care of, and I rode my 2 horses. I would get home about 10 o'clock at night, eat dinner, and then start my homework, and I usually slept about 2 or 3 hours a night for all of my high school. So I'm thinking that had something to do with it. But I was just wondering, from an Ayurvedic perspective, how does someone develop amenorrhea, and what kind of consequences are there down the road? I've been hearing a lot about how the lack of those hormones during that period can affect cognition later in life, as well as osteoporosis. So I was just wondering what your take is on that. Thanks so much.
Okay. Kristen from Florida asked a slew of questions. I'm not sure we're going to play all of them, but I'm going to start with these two, with the amenorrhea one. So she's asking in this question, like, how does someone develop amenorrhea, and what are the effects of that later in life? So the menstrual cycle it's functional. Like the Ayurvedic perspective it's obviously not just a functional system that allows us to reproduce, but it also is a mala, and a mala is a waste. And waste in the Ayurvedic perspective are not toxic bad things, but they're functional tissue. I'm not sure if you've ever thought of your poop that way, as like this really like low grade, if you will, functional tissue, or your sweat, or your urine, or your menstrual fluid. But it is. And so the menstrual fluid, it cleanses Rakta Dhatu. So the red blood cells, the blood body, if you will, if you just give yourself a squeeze, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I got all this, like you cut me open, I bleed, right? So we have this massive amount of blood in our body, and the menstrual fluid carries more antibodies than the blood that's circulating in your bloodstream. And so scientists over time have said, wow, like that's interesting. Like the body's definitely releasing that which it has cleansed from its natural immune response. And in Ayurveda, it's like, of course, like that the menstrual cycle is considered a cleansing cycle. So before you have your period, there's often a sense of mass reorganization. It might sometimes feel like internal chaos, where your emotions are a little bit more up and down, where your lymph system is much more sensitive, where like if you drink much caffeine or alcohol, you're going to feel it. Like you're going to feel bloated. You're going to feel really crappy because your body's in a reorganization time where it's cleansing. The body is cleansing, and it's going to move the toxic blood or the blood it doesn't want anymore. It's going to move it out, right? Not through bloodletting, but simply through menstruating. So when you have amenorrhea, that means you don't have your period. It means you lose out on that lovely cycle. When you lose your period due to depletion, right? That your body just simply doesn't have the energy to run through the rigmarole of releasing literally the lining of the uterus, right? And doing that whole cleansing process, releasing the lining of the uterus and rebuilding it. It's a sign that yes, you are energetically depleted, that you have what in Ayurveda we would say low ojas. So ojas it's like this really cool, super fine end result of a very good digestion, of very good absorption, of very good tissue formation, all the way from plasma through red blood cells, through muscle tissue, through fat tissue, through bone tissue, through bone marrow tissue to reproductive fluid. And then what's left over is ojas. So if you're not getting those natural reproductive fluids, the natural reproductive cycle, it's a sign that like, hey, anything beyond that's also kind of blown up. So you've already like blown up you've actually for you run off your ojas. You ran it into a place of depletion. So yeah, like a teenager getting 3 hours sleep. Holy cow, girlfriend. How did you maintain that? You are Shira. But it was self-defeating to a point, right? And so now your question to ask now is like, what do I need to do now? And sometimes like the belief of, I screwed myself over because I ran myself way too hard in too many directions, burned the candle at both ends in high school. Like that might not be a good belief. Like a good belief is like, there's things that I can do now to rebuild my ojas at an incredibly deep level and to nourish my nerve tissue, to nourish my reproductive fluid, to nourish like the deepest, my bones on such a deep level. And what that might look like is a vata pacifying routine, right? Where you're eating at the same time every day. You're going to sleep early. You're waking up early. You're getting all systems super duper regular. You're in the cosmic pulsation. And, your friends are doing this and that. And you're like, I don't care. I go to bed early. I'm building deeper bone tissue. And that's to me a much more helpful mindset. And then you could really study like what helps build really good, strong bone tissue. And you might find, the bone broths, making your own bone broths. So that is super helpful for building a very, very deep immunity. It's much more natural to eat those bone broths in autumn and in winter and in early spring, and to not eat them in late spring and summer. And you probably will be slightly repulsed by them that time of year because your body doesn't want to absorb the density of those nutrients. So little things like that I think can be quite helpful. And I'm just going to say this one last thing. When we own our story like you did on the show, and you're able to put 2 and 2 together of like, I didn't have my period. I wasn't sleeping. I ran myself into a depletion cycle. To me, there's a real beauty of that. Like when you fully own that and you express it to others, other teenage girls in particular, who are not observing the power of the cycle, because the cycle, the natural cycle is always the most powerful, right? You hook into that and you experience more power. So when you don't, and we override our cycles, and like Western cultures, where it's like we've gone all out in overriding our cycles, and we know what it leads to. It leads to exhaustion. It leads to confusion. It leads to toxic thoughts. It leads to dumbed down relationships. It leads to malnutrition, right? It leads to all sorts of sort of horrible things. It leads to obesity, like all the current epidemics, right? We see everywhere. It leads to a ton of AMA, undigested stuff that's stored as toxin in the body. And we start to see like, that doesn't, like, not heeding the cycles, whether it's the diurnal cycle, whether it's the rest and digest cycle, right? When we start to disrupt these cycles, the menstrual cycle, right? The natural cycle of creating some space before getting pregnant, creating space around pregnancy so that We're in a little squishy bubble of time, creating space around postpartum. These are all part of the natural cycles, creating space around menopause, around transitions in life, creating space around grieving processes, right? Like these are all part of these natural cycles. And when we heed the call of these cycles, we gain depth of wisdom and depth of power. So you very much may be a teacher of this to teenage girls or to other women, and maybe not in this like direct, overt offering workshops way, but in a subtle way of just telling your story and of saying, hey, if I did it again, this is how I would do it. All right. That's that.
Today's podcast is brought to you by my Living Ayurveda course. If you're curious about the power of Ayurvedic wisdom in your daily life, you're listening at the right time. As a Yoga Healer Real Life Show listener, you're invited to my preview training on the most progressive training available globally for living Ayurveda. To get in on my free video preview training, go to yogahealer.com/AYURVEDA. You will learn a ton.
Hi, Kate. I recently listened to your 2-hour workshop about getting relief from allergies, and I'm feeling like I might benefit from taking both your colon repair and your liver repair. I've had chronic constipation of the Vata type. I think I myself am a Vata. Had that constipation for about 15 years, but my allergies seem to be a combination of all 3 types, maybe predominantly Pitta. And lately I've had some like real Vata bloating, which is unusual for me. It's just come up. And then with that Vata bloating is some sort of burning, sour tummy, kind of like an acid reflux or heartburn in my solar plexus. So I'm thinking that's more of a Pitta response and wondering if the colon or the liver repair rather would be good in that case. So my question is if I can take the colon repair and the liver repair at the same time. Thank you.
Okay, Abby has a question about allergy relief workshop and the different kinds of allergies. So in that allergy relief workshop, you can find it at yogahealer.com/allergy, ALLERGY-relief, RELIEF. And it's an inexpensive work. I think it's like under $30. I can't remember. Something like that. But in it, I talk about how allergies it's not just one size fits all with allergies. In Ayurveda, we're obviously into digging into the root of the problem. So what we want to know is what in Ayurvedic language are some of the subtle energetic patterns underneath or behind the allergies, right? Is it excess air? Is it excess fire? Is it excess water? Like what's going on? Is there, and air would cause just a lot of dryness, a drying out of the channels, and then the body might create reactive mucus. Excess heat or fire, the body is going to have a lot of irritation in it. So it's going to be much more inflamed. And this is where you see like those red itchy eyes and like those, you might even get like, bloody noses, or you may have a lot of phlegm that even has some yellowness to it. Or you might get that like super itchy skin, rashy stuff going on when you get allergies and just feel like pulling your hair out because you're so freaking irritated from the inside out. And then the kapha allergies are where there's just like, you just feel like you're weighed down in mucus. Your sinuses are congested or your lungs are congested or you're just like, mucus is just oozing out of your body in copious amounts. It's often clear or not or slightly cloudy, but not colored. It's just like, you're just a snot scene. Yeah. Okay. So Abby's asking here, like, what can she take? Because in the Yoga Healer shop, I have colon repair and I have liver repair. When she tells me that she's had chronic constipation for 15 years, to me, that is like that. Doesn't that just answer it all? So what happens is just think about this. You've got, and you guys listening, like one of the ways that I like to coach people in general, especially because I always coach groups, never individuals, is to make it relatable. You want to relate this to whatever's going on with you. So whatever little thing you've got going on, what you want to start to see is the larger system of it. You want to start to presence your health history with it, right? And what's great about what Abby did is she gave me just a tiny little snippet of 15 years, right? With one line. And I'm like, okay, the waste has accumulated in her colon over time. Right? So for 15 years, she hasn't had a strong, easy downward flow. What in yoga and Ayurveda language we say is apanavayu. This natural wake up, hydrate, get pee and poop out of your body, that nice downward flow. When you do, all of a sudden you feel like this scintillating experience in your colon. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. I'm ready for a new day. I'm ready to start to breathe and move and really open body to spirit. But when we've had constipation for years and years and years and years and years times 15, right? What happens is that energy that basically the poop. I was talking before in this about the menstrual fluid being a functional tissue. And I was talking about how the malas or the waste they're functional tissue. So you're releasing as that stuff goes down and out, it kind of like plows the channel of energy. So you get grounded. Right? When you have a good bowel movement, you're like, yeah. And when you're like, yeah, like the energy is actually going all the way down into your root chakra. And this is so crucial to get because when that doesn't happen over time, not only is there like more waste circulating in your system, et cetera, right? But there's a bounce. The energy gets bounced back up. That's when you get these long-term vata imbalances. So then, of course, digestion's going to be off because there's nowhere for everything to go. So why does the bloating happen? Because the energy is now going outward, right? It can't go down. Down's closed. There's desiccated poop there, right? If you will, or waste, right? And so instead, you eat the food, and the body just starts to expand outward, and you start to feel like you're 4 months pregnant. And then where does the sour tummy, acid reflux stuff go? Well, often what happens at that point is your body is still releasing all the digestive acids. Right, and Ayurveda is part of the Pitta dosha. It comes out of the small intestine, right? The bile that's produced in part by the liver and the gallbladder and comes into the small intestine to digest and break down the food. Well, now guess what? It can't go down either. So where does it go? It goes from the small intestine into the belly and it goes up through the throat. So the beauty of understanding your health history, and we do this a lot in Living Ayurveda course, we go into the depth of like getting how you work, how all humans work, and then your own health history and starting to map out what's going on here, is you can start to see like, wow, if I were to take over-the-counter allergy medication or acid reflux or prescribed acid reflux medication, it's not helping me get to an understanding of how this pattern arose. And if I don't understand how the pattern arose, how am I going to unwind it? How am I going to dissolve it? How am I going to slowly digest it through the power of my awareness and through the actions that I'm going to take? So now that we've got all that, the question of liver repair versus colon repair, I think everyone is like, go for the colon, right? Because that's going to help us get more to the root of, hey, what happens if we get that energy going down and out? Does that all of a sudden take care of all that acid reflux, all that sour tummy stuff, which might be very much a secondary effect? Your question of, can I take both at the same time? Like, yes, neither of those formulas are going to be aggravating or excessively strong, but I always look for the simplest solution. So I would just do the colon repair. All right. I hope everyone got a little insight into just how cause and effect work in your body. I love when people discover Ayurvedic pathogenesis and their own health history and they start to understand themselves more. To me, that is why I still hold the container and lead the Living Ayurveda course community, because that aha is so powerful and so important. Thanks for listening. I've had a blast, you guys. And if we like these kind of shows, send me an email. Just send it to info@yogahealer.com and it'll make its way to my inbox. And let me know. And if you have a question for me, go to yogahealer.com/ask.
Yoga Healer Real Life Show with Cate Stillman. Yoga Healer.